The difficulty with the consciousness question, of course, as we know, is there's no single spot in the brain that is, consciousness. And so when I think about rivaling networks, I tend to think about them rivaling directly with one another. You're, of course, totally correct that, for example, visual attention can amplify certain things.
Right.
It's like coming from visual cortex, you can pay auditory attention to something or something like that. But
right, so you're gathering more resources to that
exactly
to that phenomenon.
Exactly. But I have to confess that we just don't know what consciousness is. Where does consciousness live in that? I mean, we can talk about visual attention, auditory attention, and so on, but where's this? It's not like an extra bit that just pays attention consciously. So that's still a bit of a mystery.
It's a major mystery because nobody can figure out what the awareness element is for, right? Especially since it's so limited.
Yeah. Well, what it's for, of course, is what you said at the beginning, which is the way that we go on missions into the world. If I'm looking for the red object, then I find the red object. If I'm looking for the thing that looks like a broom, then I find that in the crowded space, and so on. So visual attention is what allows us to parse the world in a way that's aligned with our mission, that what we're trying to answer in that moment.
Well, that's it. It's in the moment, right? It's got to be something like that, because you could imagine that there would be quests that are automatized so completely that the circuitry is completely there, right? But then there are new quests, so to speak, that, because they're new, the circuitry isn't there. Now, Goldberg pointed out when he was looking at this L. Conan Goldberg, he was Luria's student. He pointed out that when we are learning something new, much broader areas of the cortex are activated. It's much more energy demanding. And then as we learn something and automate it, this is in the typical right-handed male. So first of all, it's the patterns of cortical activation are very widespread, and there's a lot of energy that's being used probably because perceptions aren't well specified and there's many potential pathways of action.
Exactly.
And then the activation pattern shrinks away from the right hemisphere into the left, and then it moves from the left front to the back. And as it moves, it becomes smaller and smaller area until a little machine is built, essentially, that's automated. And once that's built, you don't need consciousness, and it's hyper efficient.
That's exactly right. So the unconscious brain, which is most of what's happening, is all about speed and efficiency. So if you look at, for example, this study has been done with playing Tetris. So you take a bunch of people, male and female, of course, left and right-handed, and you teach them to play Tetris. So when they're first learning, they're amateurs, their brain is on fire with activity as measured functional magnetic resonance imaging. So you're measuring their brains. After they become good at it, the activity just shrinks and shrinks.
Right.
It's less and less. I did this. I competed against this 10-year-old world champion cup stacker. So he takes these cups and stacks them. It's this routine that you do as quickly as you can. I had never done it before. So we both wore high-density EEG caps, electroencephalography, and we looked at what was going on. And of course, my brain was on fire with activities. I was trying to figure out what the heck to do. But he, practicing 4 hours a day on this, his brain is essentially quiet while he does this incredibly rapid routine. So it's exactly right. The job of the brain is to take novel things and say, hey, if this is relevant and I need this, I'm going to burn it down into the circuitry so I never have to think about it again. Like bicycle riding, when you're first learning, you're paying attention to your torso and your legs and you don't know what you're doing. When you get good at it, then you can text on your phone, you can talk to someone while you're biking because it's now part of the machinery of the brain.
Right. So you could think about consciousness as something that's continually climbing up a ladder of automated processes, right? So you think and practice, and that all automates, and you become hyper efficient in your perceptions and your actions. And that disappears in some ways from consciousness. It becomes becomes part of the substructure of consciousness.
Exactly.
But then consciousness itself climbs on top of that. So it's like consciousness is like the bleeding edge of adaptation.